Women love self-control because it's not about perfection. It's about power, quiet power. It's not about pleasing. It's about presence. And it's not about saying no to the world. It's about finally saying yes to yourself. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that self-control meant shrinking, that if you were a woman of discipline, you didn't need too much, didn't speak too loudly, didn't want anything more than what was politely handed to you. We started believing that control meant withholding, holding our tongues, holding our hunger, holding back our dreams. But that version of control, that's not empowerment. That's erasure. The truth is, self-denial and self-control are not the same thing. One is about suppression, the other is about intention. One is fear dressed up in perfectionism. The other is a quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything. Real self-control isn't about white-knuckling your way through life. It's about walking with presence, knowing what matters, and refusing to abandon yourself, even when it's easier to blend in. Let's talk about food, relationships, work, any area where you've ever tried to practice control. If it was rooted in shame, it didn't work. It only created more craving, more exhaustion, more disconnection from your own body and spirit. That's the trap of self-denial. It convinces us that deprivation equals discipline. But if you're disconnected from your joy, your needs, your truth, what exactly are you disciplining? A shell of who you are? When women step into real self-control, everything shifts. Because now it's not about following someone else's checklist of what a good woman looks like. It's about honoring your own values. It's about choosing rest instead of overwork, speaking truth instead of swallowing discomfort, letting go of people-pleasing and choosing integrity instead. That's not a lack of control. That's the deepest kind of self-trust. You're not avoiding the dessert because you're punishing yourself. You're pausing to ask, what do I really want right now? That's respect. That's power. And here's the thing about respect. It doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't perform. It knows. When you respect yourself, you start creating boundaries that feel like home, not prison walls. You begin listening to your intuition like it's the most trusted voice in the room, because it is. And that voice doesn't lead with should, it leads with truth. It whispers, this isn't for you, and you don't need to justify it. You just know. Self-respect changes the entire energy of how you move through the world. Instead of proving, you're rooted. Instead of pushing, you're choosing. And that doesn't mean it's always easy. It's not. Saying no, walking away, not reacting when you're triggered, those are acts of courage, not convenience. But they're also acts of deep self-love, of emotional maturity, of the kind of control that comes not from fear of chaos, but from reverence for peace. Let's name what's really happening here. When a woman reclaims self-respect, she becomes dangerous to every system that benefits from her silence, her guilt, her compliance. Because now she's not reacting, she's responding. She's not collapsing, she's choosing. And that's a threat to everything that depends on her staying small. This kind of self-control doesn't just change her life. It creates ripple effects in her family, in her relationships, in the stories her daughters will one day tell themselves about their worth. Self-control is one of those words that gets tangled up in guilt, shame, and this impossible standard of perfection. For women, especially, it's been twisted into something it was never meant to be. We're told that self-control is about denying ourselves, denying our hunger, our needs, our feelings, our voice. We learn early that a good woman is one who doesn't take up too much space, who doesn't ask for too much, who keeps everything, especially herself, in check. But let's get real. That's not self-control. That's social conditioning wrapped in a bow of performance and fear. True self-control isn't about suppression, it's about sovereignty. It's not about saying, I don't deserve this, but about asking, does this serve me? There's a massive difference. One comes from a place of lack. The other, it comes from deep knowing, the kind of knowing that's rooted in self-awareness, not self-judgment. Because here's the truth that so many of us are just starting to unlearn. If your discipline disconnects you from your truth, it's not self-control. It's self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. Self-respect is the heartbeat of true self. When you respect yourself, you stop making choices from fear and start making them from values. You don't restrict because you're afraid of what might happen if you lose control. You choose with intention because you know what matters to you. You start listening to your body, your emotions, your inner wisdom, and when you do, you realize that control isn't about rigidity, it's about alignment. When your decisions align with your truth, you don't feel punished. You feel powerful. You feel free. But that freedom often comes at a cost, doesn't it? It comes with the discomfort of disappointing people, of stepping out of roles that made others comfortable, of no longer being the one who holds it all together for everyone else. That's the paradox of real self-control. It asks you to let go of controlling everything outside of you and instead master what's happening within. Not in a performative, I've got it all figured out way, but in an honest, grounded, I'm showing up for myself even when it's hard kind of way. One of the biggest lies women are taught is that the more we deny ourselves, the more worthy we become. The more we say yes, the more lovable we are. The more we tolerate, the more virtuous we appear. But the truth is, every time we betray our needs to meet someone else's expectations, we chip away at our self-respect. We confuse endurance with strength. We confuse silence with grace. And we confuse compliance with peace. But peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of self-respect. And here's where it gets real. Practicing self-control from a place of respect takes courage. It means you might be misunderstood. It means people might call you too much or too intense or too serious. It means choosing to pause before reacting, not because you're suppressing your emotions, but because you're honoring them enough to not let them run wild. That's not weakness. That's leadership. That's emotional maturity. And women have been leading like this quietly for generations. It's time we stop being quiet about it. So when we say that self-control is a form of self-respect, what we're really saying is you get to choose your energy. You get to protect your peace. You get to say no without explanation. You get to say yes without guilt. And that is not selfish. That is sacred. Self-control doesn't mean you don't feel the fire. It means you know when to let it warm you and when to not let it burn the house down. It's discernment, it's discipline, but most of all, it's devotion. Not to being perfect, not to being liked, but to being whole. We live in a world that thrives on validation, applause, and approval. From the moment we're born, we are conditioned to seek it, chase it, and base our worth on it. Whether it's the affirmation from our parents, the praise from teachers, or the likes on social media, we're taught to value external validation above all else. It's a quiet kind of addiction, one that sneaks in when we're not looking, and before we know it, we're caught in the trap of needing approval to feel seen, to feel loved, to feel enough. The problem? Approval is an illusion. It's a moving target, and the price we pay for chasing it can cost us everything. There's a subtle and dangerous message we internalize. If you just do this, if you just say that, if you just behave this way, then you'll be enough. It's a lie that tells us that our worth is contingent upon external measures, on how we perform, on how we fit into someone else's expectations. But the truth is that approval is fleeting. Even when we get it, it's not fulfilling. It's like a sugar rush, a temporary high that leaves us craving more, but never quite filling the void. And the deeper the addiction, the more we surrender ourselves to the whims of others' opinions. For women, this addiction to approval is particularly insidious. We're socialized to be good, to be nice, to be liked. We're taught that our value lies in our ability to please, to accommodate, to be the caretaker, to put everyone else's needs before our own. But this comes at a steep price. The more we give up our voice, our wants, our needs, the more we lose touch with ourselves. The pursuit of approval asks us to sacrifice our authenticity, our boundaries, and ultimately, our peace. We end up becoming versions of ourselves that are shaped not by who we are, but by who others want us to be. Here's the rub. The more we seek approval, the less we can actually experience true connection. When we're constantly performing to meet someone else's standards, we stop showing up as ourselves. We show up as an image, a carefully curated version of who we think we should be. This image might get us applause, it might get us validation, but it doesn't get us love, not real love, not the kind that comes from being seen for who we truly are. We can only receive love when we stop pretending, and pretending is the currency of approval. But the real cost of chasing approval goes beyond the emotional toll. It wears down our mental and physical health. When we spend all our energy trying to meet others' expectations, we are left with little left for ourselves. The constant anxiety of whether we're enough, of whether we've done enough, of whether we've said enough, it creates a toxic cycle. Our bodies feel the strain of this unrelenting pressure. We carry it in our shoulders, our necks, our stomachs. It shows up in our sleepless nights, our headaches, our fatigue. The need for approval doesn't just exhaust our souls, it depletes our bodies too. And yet we keep chasing it. Why? Because we've been taught that approval equals love. It equals belonging. It equals safety. But the truth is, when we give up our authenticity in search of approval, we sacrifice true belonging. True belonging isn't about fitting in. It's about being seen and loved for who we truly are. When we strip away the masks and stop performing for others, we find connection on a deeper level. But that requires the courage to say no to the addiction of approval and to say yes to self-respect. It requires the strength to trust that who we are, as we are, is enough. Self-respect means we stop seeking external validation and start validating ourselves. We stop measuring our worth by how others see us and start measuring it by how we see ourselves. This doesn't mean we become immune to the opinions of others. It means we no longer let those opinions define our worth. We give ourselves permission to fail, to be imperfect, to be messy, because we know that that is where our true value lies. The only approval we need is our own. And once we embrace this, something incredible happens. We stop being shackled by other people's opinions, and we start to move freely in the world, grounded in our own truth. But there's another beautiful aspect to breaking free from the addiction to approval. We reclaim our agency. Approval requires us to give up power, to let someone else dictate our sense of self-worth. But when we release that need, we take back control. We start choosing the things that matter most to us. We start choosing the people who nourish us, the environments that support our growth, the activities that fuel our souls. We begin living from a place of intention, not reaction. And this is where the magic happens. When we stop performing for others, we can finally start living for ourselves. Self-control, when it is rooted in true self-awareness, is not a cage, but a key to freedom. In a world that often feels chaotic, unpredictable, and at times out of our hands, there is something immensely powerful about stepping into a space where we can say, this is my life, I am in charge of the direction I am going, and I choose the way I respond. That's sovereignty. It is not about controlling everything in your external world, it's about mastering your internal world. Sovereignty is not about domination or force. It's about ownership, about taking back the reins and deciding with clarity and confidence how you will navigate the turbulence of life. When we speak of sovereignty, we are talking about a profound inner knowing that your decisions are yours and they come from a deep sense of self-respect, not obligation. You do not need anyone else's permission to show up as your authentic self. For women especially, sovereignty means reclaiming authority over your time, your energy, and your boundaries. It means that you no longer feel compelled to give away your power to someone else's expectations or society's demands. In this context, self-control becomes a declaration of independence. I will no longer allow myself to be swept along by forces outside of me. The external world will try to pull us in many directions. The voices of others will demand our attention, our time, our resources, our energy. The expectations of family, work, and society can often create a sense of chaos, leaving us feeling like we're living life on autopilot, reacting instead of actively choosing. But when you practice true self-control, when you master your responses and honor your boundaries, you reclaim your sovereignty. It's in those moments of quiet decision, choosing not to react impulsively, not to please others at the expense of your own well-being, not to let fear drive your actions, that you affirm your right to be. True self-control as an act of sovereignty is about empowering yourself to choose how you respond to the world around you. It means stopping the habitual patterns of people-pleasing, of accommodating others to the point where you lose sight of yourself. It means saying no without guilt when something doesn't align with your values, and saying yes when an opportunity truly resonates with your soul. It's understanding that every moment of choice is a moment of sovereignty. Each decision is a step closer to owning your life in its fullness. It's about walking away from situations, people, and environments that drain you and leaning into those that feed your growth. When self-control is practiced with a sense of sovereignty, we also stop believing the lie that we have to do it all. There is an enormous pressure, especially on women, to be everything to everyone, to juggle multiple roles, to be all things at once. But sovereignty says, I don't have to be everything. I only need to be me. Self-control here means knowing your limits and respecting them, not as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of strength. It's the ability to say, I am enough as I am, and I am not going to burn myself out trying to be something I am not. Sovereignty means letting go of perfectionism, of the false idea that your value is tied to how much you can do, and instead recognizing that your worth is inherent in who you are. There is also a liberating quality to self-control when it comes from a place of sovereignty. It shifts the burden of responsibility away from external forces and places it where it belongs, within you. You are no longer at the mercy of what others think or expect. Instead, you take charge of your own destiny. You become the author of your own story. This means taking ownership of your emotions, your choices, and your actions. Instead of letting fear, anger, or anxiety control you, you choose how you respond. You choose to acknowledge your emotions, process them, and then act from a place of clarity and purpose. This is true freedom. Freedom from the chaos of being externally directed, and freedom to live life on your own terms. When you fully embrace sovereignty through self-control, your life becomes a series of intentional acts. No longer are you living reactively, pulled by every whim or desire. Instead, you become deeply rooted in your values and desires, making choices that align with your authentic self. Your decisions are no longer driven by outside expectations or fear of judgment. You choose based on what feels right for you. And that is the essence of personal power. With each choice you make, you reinforce your sovereignty. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. And yet, sovereignty is not a destination. It's an ongoing journey. The world will always be there, trying to sway you, to distract you, to convince you that your worth is conditional. But sovereignty, as an act of self-control, is about choosing again and again to live in alignment with who you truly are, not who others expect you to be. It's an ongoing commitment to your peace, your authenticity, and your purpose. With every boundary you set, Every time you say no to something that drains you, and every time you choose to honor your own voice, you reclaim your sovereignty. It's a lifelong practice, but it is also the most freeing, empowering, and fulfilling practice you can ever undertake. Clarity is one of those things we often think we need, but we're afraid to truly embrace. It's the kind of thing that we know will set us free, but when faced with the reality of it, we hesitate. Clarity has a way of exposing everything. It forces us to see what's real, what's important, and what isn't serving us anymore. It asks us to make hard decisions, to let go of old identities and relationships, and to strip away the things we've been holding on to out of fear. But here's the thing. Clarity, while it can be uncomfortable, is absolutely necessary if we want to live a life that is authentic, grounded, and full of purpose. When we choose clarity, we choose truth, and truth, by its very nature, can be disruptive. It doesn't always fit neatly into the boxes that society, our families, or even we ourselves have created. For so many of us, living a life full of clarity means rejecting the stories that others have written for us. It means shedding the expectations, the patterns, and the assumptions that have shaped our identities for years. It's unsettling at first. We fear that if we embrace our true selves, we'll lose everything: the approval of others, our sense of belonging, even our own comfort. But in reality, it's the lack of clarity that keeps us stuck. It's the fog of indecision and doubt that keeps us from moving forward, from living fully. Clarity forces us to confront the truth about our lives, where we're investing our time, where we're placing our energy, and whether those choices are in alignment with our deepest values. And sometimes, when we see those truths, they're not pretty. They challenge the comfortable lies we've been telling ourselves. We might realize that we've been saying yes to things we don't really want to do, that we've been staying in relationships or situations that no longer serve us, or that we've been putting others' needs so far above our own that we've completely lost sight of our own desires. But as uncomfortable as that truth may be, it's necessary. It's the only way we can ever make a shift, a change, and begin to reclaim our power. The reason clarity is so disruptive is that it asks us to take responsibility for our own lives. It strips away the external noise and forces us to look inward. It tells us that we can no longer blame circumstances or people for our dissatisfaction. It's on us to create the life we want. And that can be terrifying because it means letting go of the idea that we can control everything, that we can protect ourselves from the discomfort of difficult decisions. It means stepping into the unknown, trusting that once we have clarity, we will know exactly what needs to be done. But this is the paradox of clarity. It's disruptive in the short term, but it leads to the kind of freedom and peace we long for in the long term. Living in clarity isn't just about knowing what you want, it's also about knowing what you don't want. And that's where the real magic happens. Clarity allows us to set clear boundaries. It shows us what is draining us, what is toxic, and what is stealing our energy. Once we gain clarity, we can begin to say no without guilt, to walk away from situations that don't honor us, and to stop compromising our values just to make others happy. It gives us the courage to say, this isn't for me, and to stand in our truth, even when it's uncomfortable. In that space, we begin to reclaim our power. The discomfort that comes with clarity is a necessary part of the process. When we don't have clarity, we are constantly in a state of tension, stuck between what we know we need to do and what we're too afraid to face. But once clarity enters the picture, there's a sense of peace that comes with it. It's the peace of knowing where you stand. It's the peace of being aligned with your truth, even if that truth disrupts the status quo. It's the peace of knowing that even though the road ahead may be uncertain, at least you're no longer lost in the fog. It's important to remember that clarity is not something that happens overnight. It's not a sudden epiphany that you can just snap your fingers and acquire. Clarity comes from a deep, committed practice of self-reflection, self-awareness, and emotional honesty. It requires you to slow down, listen to your inner voice, and let go of distractions long enough to understand what truly matters to you. It's about getting quiet enough to hear what your soul is saying, even when everything around you is chaotic. And while clarity may initially feel like a disruptive force, it is in fact the tool that will allow you to carve out a life that is genuinely aligned with your deepest desires. And the beauty of clarity is that while it may be disruptive in the moment, it's the gift that keeps on giving. When you gain clarity, everything becomes clearer. Your decisions, your relationships, your purpose. You stop second-guessing yourself, and you stop questioning your worth. You stop chasing after things that don't matter and start focusing on the things that truly fulfill you. The disruption that comes with clarity is temporary, but the peace that follows it is lasting. Clarity is the foundation on which you can build a life that feels truly yours. It's the first step toward living a life that is not dictated by fear or uncertainty, but by your truth. Discomfort is often seen as the enemy. It's the feeling we try to avoid at all costs, the ache in our stomach when we face something uncertain, the unease that follows us when we push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. In a culture that idolizes perfection, ease, and certainty, discomfort is treated as a warning sign, a red flag that we're doing something wrong. But the truth is, discomfort is a powerful signal that we are growing. It's the body's way of telling us that we are on the edge of something new, that we are about to break free from old patterns and step into a new version of ourselves. When we experience discomfort, especially as women, we're often taught to shut it down, to push through it, or to avoid it altogether. We are told to be strong, to not complain, to put on a brave face and carry on. But this mindset only reinforces the idea that discomfort is something to be feared. We start to believe that if we are uncomfortable, we must be doing something wrong. This couldn't be further from the truth. Discomfort is often the birthplace of transformation. It is the point where our old habits, beliefs, and behaviors begin to shift. It's the threshold where we move from who we were to who we are becoming. When we push through discomfort instead of running from it, we open the door to growth. Think about the times in your life when you've experienced the most growth, the moments when you faced fear head on, when you made a difficult decision, when you chose to step into something unknown. It's not the moments of comfort that define us. It's the moments of discomfort, the moments when we felt like we couldn't go any further, but we did anyway. These are the moments that shape our strength, resilience, and wisdom. Growth, by its very nature, involves discomfort. It requires us to stretch, to challenge ourselves, and to let go of old identities that no longer serve us. As we grow, discomfort becomes less of a sign that something is wrong and more of a sign that something is right. It means we are on the right path. It means we are doing the inner work, shedding the old layers of who we once were and stepping into a new version of ourselves. Discomfort is not failure. It's the necessary tension that precedes the release of a new, stronger version of who we are. Without discomfort, we would remain stagnant, unwilling to challenge ourselves, unwilling to change. The discomfort we feel is the evidence that we are moving forward, that we are growing in ways that will ultimately serve us in the future. For women especially, discomfort can feel like a signal that we've overstepped, that we've been too bold, too loud, or too much. But this narrative is deeply ingrained in societal expectations. We've been conditioned to believe that ease and smooth sailing are the signs of success, that if we're struggling or facing resistance, we're doing something wrong. But what if we started to see discomfort as a marker of our courage? What if we started to embrace the challenges that come with growth and recognize that they are not indicators of failure, but of our willingness to evolve? Embracing discomfort is a radical act of self-love. It is saying, I am worthy of growth. I am worthy of change, even when it's hard. When we change our relationship with discomfort, we begin to see it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. Instead of avoiding it, we begin to lean into it. We begin to see discomfort as the necessary friction that sparks change. It's like a muscle that grows stronger the more we work it. At first, it might feel painful, even overwhelming. but over time, discomfort becomes less threatening. We begin to understand that we are not fragile beings, we are resilient, and that discomfort is just a temporary phase, a signpost along the way to something better. The truth is that growth is messy, it's not linear, and it's certainly not comfortable, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. Every uncomfortable experience is a lesson in resilience, in grit, and in learning how to navigate the ups and downs of life. When we can accept discomfort as part of the journey, we stop fighting against it, and instead, we make it a part of our process. We begin to trust that discomfort is not something to fear, but something to embrace because it is guiding us toward our next level of strength and wisdom. It is not the absence of discomfort that defines us. It's how we move through it that shapes our lives. Discomfort is not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to our growth. The more we lean into the discomfort, the more we expand our capacity to handle life's challenges. We stop being afraid of failure because we understand that failure is simply a part of the growth process. We learn to embrace the discomfort that comes with learning new things, stepping into new roles, and facing the unknown. And in doing so, we begin to unlock our true potential. The discomfort we feel today is the strength we will carry with us tomorrow. It's the wisdom that we will share with others, the courage we will inspire in those around us, and the confidence we will build in ourselves. When we begin to see discomfort not as a signal to retreat, but as a sign of progress, we open ourselves up to transformation. We stop running from the things that challenge us and start running toward them, understanding that every uncomfortable moment is an opportunity to evolve. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens when we step outside of it, when we stretch ourselves, and when we choose to rise above the fear and resistance. Embrace the discomfort, trust in the process, and know that on the other side lies the powerful, resilient version of yourself that you are meant to become. So the next time discomfort knocks on your door, instead of avoiding it, let it in. It's here to teach you something extraordinary.